for the next big outing. Preparations start a few days, and sometimes weeks beforehand. So here we are, making preparations in the garage. Knowing in advance how many people are coming along, and after evaluating previous expeditions, we are not taking all of the wheeled machinery this time, to not waste any time and drive non-stop on tracks and the snowmobile. The old snowmobile hasn't been driven for a few seasons and has been left idle in the backyard. But it continues to start up, as they say, at half a revolution. To take it with us, we switched it with a Polaris on the trailer, reaffirming that everything is fine with the snowmobile and that it is ready to go. The next day, we redirect our focus onto preparing the other machinery. Alex decided to place a big aluminum rack on the roof of his Yamaha for baggage. Many little holes were already made in the rack in advance to comfortably attach the baggage with carabiners and for water drainage. Since the perimeter of the rack is lined with a tall railing, without the holes, water will collect and remain inside for a long time. To ensure that its base does not bend under the weight of the baggage, we decided to strengthen it with two metal crossbars that simultaneously serve as the attachment to the main frame of the car and leave a gap with the help of which the rack will not press down on the main roof of the Yamaha, made of a hard plastic. The special fastener for the frame did not arrive due to the unexpected snow, so, equipped with all the necessary tools, a grinder and a hammer, we made a fastener ourselves on the eve of our departure. There is no time to wait. The trip is planned for tomorrow morning. The three of us were able to finish in a few hours, and having prepared everything else, headed home to pack the rest. From 8 a.m., everyone has gathered at our starting place. We securely attach everything onto the trailers before the long road and head out on our way. The road to the cabin will take up all the hours of daylight of this March day. Today, to get to the unloading area, we must drive 215 kilometers and then continue on tracks. Driving without pit stops through a pass with an ascent of 1,000 meters will take about 3 hours. Thus, we expect to arrive at the cabin around twilight or when it gets completely dark. But for now, traveling against the wind, we drive through picturesque areas north of the coastal ridges along the Pacific coast of British Columbia, a long highway, which has existed since 1942 and got its name from the old Route 99 in the United States, which connected to the highway. The road is very beautiful and is considered one of the main passages of the west coast of Canada. This highway stretches out 409 kilometers from the border of the USA, through the very center of Vancouver, then through some small towns and populated areas such as Squamish, Whistler, Pemberton, and Lillooet, and ends at an intersection with highway north of the province. This road has several names, depending on the section you are traveling through. South of Vancouver, it is known as the Fraser Delta Thruway, Sea to Sky Highway, Squamish Highway, or Whistler Highway north of Vancouver. The road mesmerizes with its beauty, and winding along a gulf, smoothly descends toward the water, where a river of the same name as Squamish houses a small populated area in its river mouth. According to census data from 2016, 19,500 people reside in Squamish. The city itself arose during the construction of the Pacific Great Eastern Railway in the 1910s. However, the natives of Squamish have lived in this region for thousands of years. From this arose the name, which originated from the Squamish or Skokomish, the local Salish language of North America, tightly connected to the Nooksack, Halkomlim, and Shashisha languages. I thought we still had about an hour of driving left, but as Karen said, we have very little time left, namely 15 minutes until the unloading point. Right now, we are in the town of Pemberton. Pemberton, a rural municipality in the region of Squamish-Lillooet in the southwest area of British Columbia. It is located approximately 153 kilometers north of Vancouver and 33 kilometers northeast of Whistler. The valley is found on the traditional territory of the First Nations Lil'wat, who lived here for thousands of years but now are mainly populated on Mount Currie. It is 210 meters above sea level here, and the population in 2021 consisted of 3,407 people. The general area was named after Joseph Despard Pemberton, born in 1821. It is possible that Joseph Pemberton had never visited this region. In reality, the surname Pemberton is widely distributed, with origin starting in Ireland and then leading to the United States of America and Canada. However, I did not find any relation between him and the next person who also bears the surname Pemberton. John Pemberton was born in 1831 in the city of Knoxville in the state of Georgia. John Pemberton was the person who discovered Coca-Cola. During the Civil War, he fought in the ranks of the Confederate Army, having served until he gained the status of a lieutenant colonel. In April of 1865, he was injured and as a result, like many other war veterans, became addicted to morphine. In search of a cure for this addiction, he began experimenting with coca and wines containing it. Coca is a cocaine bush which acquired widespread recognition in the second half of the 19th century as a raw material for the production of cocaine, a narcotic from the category of stimulants. In the end, John created his own version of the Mariani wine drink, containing cola nuts and Damiana, that he named Pemberton's French wine cola. Later in 1885, in several districts of Georgia, a dry law was enforced. Pemberton was forced to change the composition of the drink, eliminating the alcoholic base and replacing it with a syrup of burnt sugar with carbonation. For this new version, Pemberton's accountant Frank Mason Robinson came up with the name Coca-Cola, incorporating in itself a reference to the two main components of the drink, the cocaine bush and cola nuts. Robinson, who was also skilled in the art of calligraphy, wrote the word Coca-Cola with beautiful, cursive letters. Initially, the original composition contained 8.46 milligrams of cocaine. However, its effect was significantly worsened by the presence of caffeine from the cola nuts. John took the first batch of the syrup to the largest pharmacy in town, Jacob's, where the drink was sold for 5 cents a cup. Coca-Cola was formerly recommended to war veterans as a medicine for treating morphine and opium addiction, and later it was recommended for depression, anxiety, and even stomach, digestion, and kidney diseases among women. At the end of, Pemberton owned almost all the rights to his invention, but his morphine addiction remained, forcing the innovator to sell parts of his company. By the summer of 1888, the founder of Coca-Cola and his son Charles lost all of the company stocks. John Pemberton died in poverty from stomach cancer in 1888 in Atlanta at the age of 57. In the same year, banker Asa Griggs Candler bought the rights to the drink for $2,300 from Pemberton's widow, and in 1892 registered the company as the Coca-Cola Company. So goes the interesting story of this city, which, as it turns out, carries a profound name, Pemberton. Finally, we are at the unloading place. Most of the parking lot is filled with trucks. The place here is popular. Everyone is going out to ride snowmobiles along the pass with tons of snow. We also, trying to avoid any delay, quickly unload and hop on the tracks to conquer the next segment of our route. Even so, we arrived here 2 hours later than we planned. We drove without haste and, as you saw, made a few pit stops along the way. However, we could not do everything as quickly as we had hoped. The snowmobile stalled after the first start. and we were trying to figure out the reason on the spot. The snowmobile doesn't have reverse speed, so we had to manually push it backward. To make it convenient to set up, we try simultaneously pressing the gas handle to start it. To avoid wasting time and not crowding around it, we simultaneously continue to unload the rest of the machines and distribute our thing. The snowmobile does not respond to any of our pleas, regardless of how affectionately we address it or plead with it. Around us, there was a distinctive smell of gasoline. There was a large fuel supply, and the spark plugs got flooded again. One by one, we remove and unscrew the spark plugs to check if they are really flooded with gasoline, and they become very wet. At the same time, we check the gap on the plugs, whether it's large or small, making sure that the spark plugs are indeed very wet and the gaps are normal. We dry each plug with fire. The truth is, the day before, in the garage, we had already done all of this, drying the plugs and checking for spark, and everything was working. Finally, it conceded after drying the spark plugs, and overjoyed, we quickly began unloading further. But the music of the grumbling, working engine which so pleased our ears, did not last long, and it stalled once again. Having labored with it for another half hour, we were still unable to get it to run. From the parking lot, we immediately begin the steep ascent along a serpentine going up 1,000 meters, and I eagerly release my drone into the sky to capture the beautiful scenery. But this was not meant to be. My drone had but a few seconds left to live. Through the phone screen, I did not notice the swift attack and simply observed with bewilderment as it fell. Honestly, I did not expect that. That was when it filmed how an eagle attacked it from above, according to the view and its plumage. This conclusion was brought forward when I, descending to get it for almost 20 minutes along an incline between rocks and trees with a walkie-talkie to communicate with the guys in one hand and the remote control in the other, found it by GPS with a broken cover and torn off blade and camera. It was exactly the hole in the cover that led me to this thought. And until the next day, when we watched the footage in slow motion, no one supported my theory, assuming that the hole was a result of it hitting some rock on the ground. That was how we lost another hour of our time. But what can you do? We are surrounded by the wilderness. Only the fittest survive. After descending and ascending the snowy incline, I completely lost all my energy and nearly crawled on all fours to the road, having oriented the guys as to where to find me through the walkie-talkie. It would have been better if I had gone down the incline by the road, which we had driven on earlier, even though it would have been 3 times as far as climbing back up. But at least, I wouldn't have lost so much energy. Quickly lifting my spirits, the camera is in my hands once again. The loss of the drone is quite sad for me, But that will not make me stop filming altogether. And there is quite a lot to look at here. The views are amazing, and the higher we climb, the more snow there is. We move along a service road for deforestation. It is fully covered in waves from a large number of snowmobiles riding through here. These waves are formed from a suspension that is used by manufacturers on snowmobiles. Some of these craftsmen modernize their tracks to avoid the formation of waves, but most are left with this problem. Such waves don't form from our vehicles, but there is no other road, so we could not accelerate much when we constantly bounce from ridge to ridge. The suspensions on our vehicles work diligently to level out each bump and make for a smooth drive. On this pass, the short spruce and fir trees, covered up to their peaks due to the large amount of snow, almost blend in with the landscape, creating unforgettable views that we gaze upon with great amazement. But for this place, there is not as much snow this year, and for that, we are extremely lucky. There have been times when Jeeps and other off-road vehicles left here over the weekend have been buried in snow up to their roofs. We heard a constant knocking on the roof, and I decided to ride on the top to figure out what is poorly attached and dangling. From the top, everything at a larger distance can be seen, but for a long ride, this is unsafe, regardless of how relatively comfortable it is riding here. Periodically, it feels like a highway here. We regularly meet other passers-by on snowmobiles and joyfully greet each other. Mainly, they are those who came here for the day. They, in turn, regard our vehicles with as much interest, taking videos and photographs. It is not every day that you meet such adventurers as us in the mountains at a height of 1,300 meters. Having reached the halfway mark of our journey at its highest point, we begin to smoothly descend down the other way of the pass. The snow sticks to the frames of the vehicles and to us more readily, forcing us to bundle up even more to protect ourselves from the moisture and cold. Having made another pit stop to relax after the constant bouncing on the road, we tightened two loosened tracks. In reality, this was not supposed to happen, especially since the control nut was tightened well. But anything can happen on the road. Now we know to keep watch, and to check the tension of the leftmost tracks on Daniel's ATV more often. Twilight smoothly descends on us from the sky, pressing down even harder and enveloping us from all sides, reminding us that it is best to hurry and, given the opportunity, press down on the gas even harder to speed up, especially since the deeper the road moves into the woods, the more continuous it becomes, allowing the opportunity to speed up even more on the downward. Illuminated by the light of the headlights, our tracks rustled along the snow with great inclination, raising swirls of snow that filled the air all around and settled as a tacky mass onto us from our heads to our toes. We change our formation periodically to watch out for each other and minimize any losses. If some of our stuff detaches along the way in the darkness, we would quickly drive past and fail to notice if a bag or backpack flies away, torn off by a gust of wind. But everything was securely attached, and excluding the broken drone, we finally made it to the cabin, where we will spend 2 nights in comfort and warmth. The only thing left was a small concern that the cabin might be occupied, and we would have to take shelter with someone else. Our joy was boundless when we found out that the house was empty and we would be here by ourselves. As a mandatory tradition, inside the house, there must always be a good supply of dry firewood which every visitor must maintain for the next travelers who, if possible, could quickly light up the furnace and warm up if they arrived at the last moment, instead of searching around the house and under the snow for damp firewood or even worse, sawed-off dry wood. The furnace inside was occupied with the warm fire. We switched gears outside to shovel snow from the rock-lined campfire so that we could sit by an open fire in the evening and enjoy the silence of the mountains to the crackle of the campfire. The guys inside the house are setting up our living quarters for a comfortable lodging and overnight stay for the whole weekend. The frozen brushwood instantly shatters into small pieces under the weight of the big axe that Igor bears skillfully and is immediately distributed to the prospective open fire and furnace in the house. I promptly use them to load up the furnace. The coarsely chopped firewood will give off warmth for a long time, all evening and through the night, whereby there would be no need to wake up as frequently to toss in more and more firewood. Inside, everything is ready. We can now exhale and enjoy the evening, drink some hot tea and have dinner with friends by the campfire. Over the day, we became considerably hungry and tired. Nikita is not with us today, so Karen was in charge of cooking the fragrant ribs. Having sated our hunger, almost everyone felt the immediate allure of sleep, and the guys set out to rest in the cabin. Igor, Alexander, and I were also about to follow their lead when out of the darkness of the woods in the lowlands, we heard the howl of wolves. I tried to record their howl on my camera and I succeeded. The atmosphere was unforgettable. Yes, that was interesting to hear. Anyway, this is the first time I heard how the wolves howl in real life. By a campfire and in large company, I would even tell you that it was somewhat mesmerizing, which probably could not have been said if you were here alone. But the wolf is a very cautious creature, and most times, he himself will avoid any encounter with you and will hardly risk coming near a campfire. Like this, the three of us remained for some time. The firewood, gradually burning out, gives off less and less light, which steadily melts under the heavy, thickening darkness, and only the stars through the clouds and the bright moon with its halo try to illuminate as much as they can. Competing with our campfire, which steadily continues to play with its yellow-orange light on the sparkling snow. The night has now fully taken everything under its control until the morning.